Savage Opress expected to live out his days in service until age or battle took him. But fate had other plans. Like all the other men born on Dathomir, Savage and his younger brother Farrell belonged to the servant class called the Nightbrothers. They existed under the command of a coven of witches that held dominion over the planet, the Nightsisters. The brothers learned their duties well. They handled the physical upkeep of their settlements, gathered resources, hunted for food and raw materials from the planet's dangerous beasts, and trained in combat to defend against Dathomirian predators and external threats. Under Brother Viscus, their leader, Savage and Farrell became two of their village's tribal heads. In time, Savage proved to be the more exceptional of the two. Their ancestry already guaranteed top physical form. All the Nightbrothers originated from criminal Zabrak refugees who fled to Dathomir centuries ago. But even by these standards, Savage grew up to become stronger and fiercer than the rest. This set him up to be selected to serve the Nightsisters for bigger, but not exactly better things. On a normal day of training exercises, that moment came. Drawing from the canon animated series The Clone Wars, Savage's story began when a witch arrived at the Nightbrother village looking for a champion to serve her. The village bell rang to announce the arrival of the Nightsister, Asajj Ventress. Brother Viscus received her, and she expressed at once that she had come for the selection. The village leader rounded up his tribal heads to present them to the Nightsister. Ventress displayed her ruthlessness while she assessed the group. Savage watched her body language and knew she was a deadly force. Every now and then, the Dathomir witches would come to the village to claim a Nightbrother as her mate or enforcer in what was known as the selection trials. Those who failed were killed until only one Nightbrother remained. This was the way it had always been, and questioning the system resulted in death. Like everyone in their village, Savage viewed the Nightsisters with a mixture of fear, respect, and absolute service. He warned Farrell not to draw attention to himself. But Ventress noticed both of them anyway and handpicked the brothers to take part in the selection. The Nightsisters were known for their great and dark magical abilities, but they were also trained assassins. The Dathomirian rulers were especially lethal because they combined magics with their combat skills. And for their first challenge, the Nightbrothers would be fighting one of the witches in direct combat. A total of 6 tribal heads were chosen to participate in the selection. After the first trial, only 4 survived to compete in the next one. The second trial was another battle, but this time it took place in near total darkness. The test stripped away every advantage from the Nightbrothers except for their instinct and awareness. Ventress hunted them through shadow, employing magics to mask her presence and move at incredible speeds. Savage was worried for Farrell and tried to track the Nightsisters' movements through sound alone. Up to this point, Savage had spent significant energy checking on his younger brother. He protected Farrell as best he could and made sure his brother didn't get badly hurt. Ventress had immediately picked up on this attachment and called Savage weak for it, but Savage's remarkable instincts paid off during the second test. With only him and his brother left, he successfully deflected Ventress's attack and spared Farrell from her blade at the same time. However, this sense of victory didn't last long. The selection could only have one winner, and competing in the final trial meant only one of them would be left alive. Savage instructed his younger brother to stay close and fight the Nightsister together, but the final challenge proved to be tricky. The arena they fought in was an obstacle course of stone slabs that shifted and rose, creating platforms that appeared and vanished. Ventress pursued the brothers while the terrain changed constantly beneath their feet. After a long struggle, the brothers couldn't keep up with the shifting environment and were forced apart. In panic, Savage tried to get to his brother, but Ventress cornered Farrell and started to attack him. It didn't take long for the younger Nightbrother to lose against her assault. The Nightsister had him in a force choke when Savage found them. Savage struck Ventress to break her concentration, promising the Nightsister that as long as he lived, no harm would come to his younger brother. In the short fight that followed, Savage showed great physical strength and combat skills to hold his own against a Nightsister, but he knew he couldn't win against Ventress. To keep Farrell safe, Savage offered himself in exchange for his younger brother's life. Ventress showed disgust, but weighed the situation and ultimately let Farrell go. The battle between the two of them continued. Savage fueled his attacks with all of his fury and power. Still, he was no match for the Nightsister. The duel ended with Savage on the ground and Ventress with her foot on his neck. It left Savage no choice other than to pledge his life to his new master. When the selection was over, Ventress got ready to take Savage back to the Coven's fortress. The Nightbrothers gathered for a silent goodbye as the Nightsister drove away with her new prize. Savage threw an injured Farrell one last look, as if to say they would probably never meet again. But he was content to know that his younger brother was at least safe. The Dathomir witches live far from the Nightbrother village, in temples and strongholds where they practice alchemy, illusions, mind control, and necromancy. As soon as they arrived, Ventress presented Savage to the Coven's matriarch, Mother Talzin. The clan mother regarded the Nightbrother with satisfaction, proclaiming Savage a strong and perfect male specimen. In truth, Ventress and Mother Talzin were in a plot to destroy the Sith Lord Count Dooku. Ventress had served as Dooku's loyal acolyte until her influence grew too strong. The Sith Lord betrayed her by arranging for her assassination, an order that the Count had believed was successful. Mother Talzin was preparing a Nightbrother assassin for Dooku, posing it as a gift to replace Ventress. The real goal was to infiltrate the Count's inner circle and wait for the ideal moment to strike from within. The selection was the first step. The second was to perform a transformation ritual. The ritual was sometimes done to enhance a Nightbrother's physical traits and turn him into an elite instrument for battle. Mother Talzin put Savage in an enchanted sleep. Then the Nightsisters took him to a ritual chamber where the matriarch channeled ancient magics that materialized as green smoke, the physical and luminescent manifestation of Dathomir's life force. Mother Talzin weaved the energy directly into Savage's body. The Nightbrother's muscle mass expanded dramatically, his horns grew longer, and his skin darkened to a deeper yellow. When the procedure was done, the clan mother woke Savage by tapping her finger on his forehead, indicating that their new weapon was activated. Beyond the changes in his body, the ritual was supposed to increase Savage's aggression above natural levels, heighten his sensitivity to the Force, and put him under Mother Talzin's and Ventress's total control. But as soon as Savage regained consciousness, he grabbed Ventress by the throat and squeezed. At the Nightsisters' command, Savage eventually let her go, but the Coven had to ensure that the mental conditioning side of the ritual had stabilized. They needed proof that their new weapon's obedience was absolute, and Ventress's final task was the ultimate test. Unexpectedly, the Nightsisters dragged Farrell into the chamber. They had secretly taken the tribal head from the Nightbrother village and put him in prison. Ventress ordered Savage to kill his brother. When Savage hesitated, the Nightsisters slapped him into attention. Against his brother's pleas, Savage called Farrell a weakling before breaking his neck. Ventress was satisfied that the transformation was complete. The Nightsisters equipped their new champion with a mystically reinforced vibroaxe and armor resistant to blaster fire. Mother Talzin conjured the weapon, designed to channel Force energy and serve as an extension of Savage's amplified strength. The matriarch's gift to Count Dooku was ready to be delivered. The clan mother personally escorted Savage to Dooku's homeworld Sereno. The Sith Lord examined the Nightbrother in the palace grounds. Mother Talzin described Savage as the fiercest of his kind. She had told Dooku that his new assassin was descended from the same bloodline as Darth Maul, Sidious's apprentice before the Count. Dooku accepted Savage without hesitation, saying that they would do great things together. The Sith Lord promised to teach Savage the ways of the dark side until the Nightbrother's powers would rival even those of Darth Maul's. He revealed his intention to overthrow Darth Sidious with Savage's assistance. To test his new acolyte's capabilities in combat, Dooku deployed Savage on his first assignment right away. On the planet Devaron, a separatist invasion was ongoing to take over a strategically placed temple. Republic forces guarded it, and Savage's task was to seize the sanctuary and eliminate the defensive troops that guarded it. Without question, the Nightbrother headed for Devaron at once and joined the battle as soon as he disembarked. Savage charged out on foot, sprinting ahead of Dooku's forces that were already present. He didn't attempt to stop for cover or to consider strategies. He rushed towards the temple with one singular goal. In his mindless rage, Savage didn't separate between friend and foe, shoving and smashing separatist battle droids out of his way so he could arrive at the temple faster. When he reached the temple's defense line, the Nightbrother tore through Republic forces without breaking a stride. After eliminating all the clone troopers, he came face to face with Master Halsey, the Jedi Master leading the temple's defense. Their duel was brief. Despite Halsey's agility and skill, he was overwhelmed by Savage's raw strength and anger. Savage brutally struck the Jedi Master down, while his Padawan Nox helplessly watched. Screaming, Nox rushed forward in a desperate attack. The Nightbrother ended the fight instantly with a single, massive blow. The Force sent the Padawan's body flying into the temple doors, killing him on impact. Savage contacted Dooku to report that the temple had been taken. All the defenders were dead, including the Jedi. The Count was extremely satisfied with his new acolyte's performance and ordered him to return. When the Jedi Council reviewed the temple's security footage, they instantly recognized Savage's Zabrak physical characteristics and facial tattoo patterns as matching those of Darth Maul. The brutality of the killings led them to realize that a new Sith Lord has emerged from Dathomir. After the invasion of Devaron, Savage began his Sith training on Sereno. Dooku taught Sith combat techniques by sparring with his new acolyte using lightsabers. Savage's technique was aggressive but chaotic, which the Count easily parried. Still, the Sith Lord told Savage he has a natural ability that he should hone with hate. To show his apprentice what he meant, Dooku brought Savage to a platform surrounded by stone pillars and obelisks. The Count used the Force to lift the stone obelisks and drop them back without effort. He instructed Savage to do the same. Mother Talzin's magical modifications allowed Savage access to the Force, but the Nightbrother found it impossible to imitate what his master did. He reached out with his hand, grunting and straining. The stones vibrated slightly but did not rise. This did not sit well with Dooku. He raised his hand and blasted Savage with Force lightning. Savage crumpled to the ground and screamed in pain. This happened multiple times until Savage's hatred and anger hit their highest points. While still being electrocuted, Savage roared and successfully raised the stones using the Force. Dooku was greatly pleased. He told Savage that he could feel his acolyte's fury and power. After the training session, Savage received a new assignment. Dooku ordered him to go to Toydaria and capture King Katunko alive. By capturing the king, the Count intended to force Toydaria into an alliance with the Separatists or use him as a high-value bargaining chip against the Republic. The task seemed easy enough. With remarkable efficiency, Savage infiltrated the palace and cut through the Toydarian royal guard. He rendered Katunko unconscious and secured the king for transport in record time. However, something unexpected happened. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker barged in to intercept the mission. The Jedi had been investigating Savage since the events on Devaron. They had traced him to Toydaria and arrived at the palace determined to stop him. During the skirmish that followed, Savage found himself overwhelmed by the Jedi's coordinated teamwork. Kenobi and Skywalker operated as one unit, and Savage's raw power was insufficient against their precise strikes. As he struggled to secure Katunko while fighting off two experienced Force users, Savage grew frustrated. To make matters worse, Katunko awoke and managed to free himself from Savage's clutches. To prevent the king from fleeing, Savage used the Force to reel Katunko back towards him. But the combination of his raw power and the physical struggle against the Jedi resulted in him snapping the Toydarian king's neck. Savage found a window to escape from the Jedi. He simply hauled Katunko's limp corpse back to his ship and left Toydaria. Despite failing to keep the king alive, Savage completed the mission as far as he was concerned. Dooku was furious, enraged that Savage had killed a valuable hostage and brought back a useless body. The Count began to torture his apprentice with force lightning without pity. Savage pleaded for forgiveness, but Dooku reminded him mercy was not the way of the dark side. It was at this moment that Asajj Ventress revealed herself from hiding. The Count ordered Savage to get rid of the witch to redeem himself from his failure. Instead, Ventress laughed, touching Savage's forehead. She activated his control protocol and reminded the Nightbrother of his true purpose: to kill Dooku. Both Nightbrother and Nightsister began to attack the Sith Lord. Despite their combined strength, Dooku displayed superior mastery in combat. He used Force Lightning repeatedly to keep Savage at bay. While the Nightbrother scrunched up in pain, Ventress didn't stop barking orders. As they continued to battle the Sith Lord, she scolded Savage for not being able to withstand the Count's lightning attacks. Then something snapped. In a primal outburst of rage, Savage used the Force to choke Ventress and Dooku at the same time. The Nightbrother's mental conditioning had been broken. He fought both masters using his physical bulk and a Force pulse to blast both of them away. The Count and the Nightsister repelled Savage using the Force and threw him across the ship. Dooku escaped through an emergency hatch, with Ventress pursuing him. Savage soon found himself alone to face Obi-Wan and Anakin, who had followed him to Dooku's flagship. With his raw strength, in spite of being outnumbered and weakened from the earlier battle, Savage fought his way to the hangar and fled. Recovering agency over his own thoughts for the first time since his transformation, Savage decided to return home. Injured and aimless upon his arrival on Dathomir, Savage limped through the Nightsisters' fortress to seek guidance from Mother Talzin. In his mind, Ventress had betrayed him. With the Jedi after him, and assuming the Sith as well, he didn't think he was powerful enough to defeat his enemies. Instead of focusing on his concerns, Mother Talzin gave Savage a shocking revelation. His brother, Darth Maul, was alive. She revealed that Maul had survived his apparent death on Naboo over a decade earlier and was now living in the Outer Rim as an exile. The clan mother gave Savage a new purpose: to find his brother. She told Savage that Maul could teach him everything he needed to learn to become even more powerful. Mother Talzin provided Savage with a talisman imbued by Nightsister magic, an artifact that would heat up and glow when it detected traces of Maul's presence. Savage, hopeful of finding a connection with a bloodkin, promised to find his brother and take him back to Dathomir. The warrior's quest took Savage across multiple systems across the Outer Rim, chasing after faint clues. On the planet Stobar, he caused an altercation in a local diner that drew attention from Jedi forces. While fleeing from authorities, he encountered a freighter captain whose cargo containers bore dust that made the talisman glow. It was the first real sign that pointed to Maul's location. Savage forced the captain to take him to the planet where the containers came from, ejecting the man from his own ship when they arrived. The planet's name was Lotho Minor, a wasteland covered in scrap metal and industrial waste. Acid rain fell regularly, corroding anything exposed to the environments. Savage's arrival drew the attention of various inhabitants: junker droids that scavenged the waste, huge fire-breathing incinerator machines that consumed debris, and a creature named Morley, an anacondan who offered to serve as his guide. The Nightbrother listened as Morley spoke of a local legend about a horned creature that dragged victims underground. It is said that the mysterious creature possessed physical features similar to Savage. The anacondan led the Nightbrother through the section of the junk field where debris had been deliberately arranged into tunnels and chambers. After a while, they were forced to seek cover because of acid rainfall. The shelter they entered showed signs of life. Someone had carved living space out of the waste, and it made Savage's talisman glimmer. Then, Morley betrayed him, exposing a trap hidden on the floor that dropped the Nightbrother deep into underground tunnels. In the darkness below, Savage was stalked by a creature that moved with unsettling agility through the shadows. When the Nightbrother confronted the creature, The talisman's glow made him realize he was looking at Maul, who had been reduced to a barely coherent being. Maul's lower body had been replaced with improvised mechanical spider legs constructed from scrap parts. Maul would try to attack Savage and then retreat. He alternated between weeping, laughing, and muttering fragments about his past. But through his incoherent ravings, he blurted out thoughts about a master, the Jedi, and revenge. Savage tried to reason with his brother, repeatedly stating their blood connection until pieces of recognition began to pierce through the insanity. Morley appeared in the tunnel and was surprised to see Savage alive. The Anacondan was expecting a dead body so he could claim leftovers from Maul's kill. Savage realized Morley had known of Maul's presence all along, but had chosen to take advantage of his brother's madness over helping him. Savage killed Morley for his deception and cruelty. He choked the serpentine creature to death and threw the body onto a small fire that burned in the center of the cavern. Savage set to work to retrieve his brother. He carried Maul back to his stolen ship, loaded him into the cargo hold, and set course for Dathomir. Maul rambled and screamed the whole way, muttering the name Kenobi over and over again. Dathomir wasn't the same place that Savage left. He expected to return to the Nightsisters, but landed on a barren planet littered with corpses instead. Green vapor began to shine, and Mother Talzin emerged from it. She had been preparing for the brothers' arrival. Savage asked her what happened. She told the Nightbrother that Dooku sent his minions to destroy the Dathomir witches, but that they would endure. Without delay, the clan mother performed a ritual to return Maul's sanity. The process was similar to the one Savage had gone through, but this time, the incantations were focused on restoration. Savage watched as Mother Talzin rebuilt Maul's mind, drawing the madness out of his consciousness. Then, she gave him new cybernetic legs, replacing the monstrous spider apparatus that previously functioned as his limbs. After her work was done, the matriarch disappeared into the mist. Maul awoke and was his old self again. From that moment, Savage was no longer alone. He had family, a brother, towards whom he felt immediate loyalty. He watched quietly as Maul went through violent realization and processed his fury. Maul expressed a profound sense of loss, noting that the Force felt out of balance. When Savage informed him that the galaxy was currently consumed by the Clone Wars, Maul became enraged, lamenting that the conflict started without him. He told Savage he was once the apprentice of the most powerful being in the galaxy. He felt cheated out of his destiny, stating that he had been prepared for great things before his defeat on Naboo. Maul blamed the Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi most especially, for everything he had suffered. Savage encouraged his brother to have his revenge. Maul approved and started to share his plans. As Maul described his objectives and made his revenge a shared goal between brothers, Savage felt he had a real partner. Driven by Maul's singular obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi, the brothers left Dathomir and stopped at Raydonia. They arrived on the peaceful settlement not as conquerors, but as butchers. Maul told Savage that nothing could draw out the Jedi faster than the massacre of innocents. Savage followed his brother's lead as they thoroughly eliminated the colonists. Standing in the middle of their violent handiwork, Savage watched as Maul used a holographic transmission to taunt the Jedi, promising to keep killing until the Jedi Master came to face him alone. As expected, Obi-Wan came to Raydonia himself. Savage assisted in the ruthless ambush that left the Jedi unconscious. They dragged their prize back to their ship for Maul's plans of torture. Savage thought the fulfillment of his brother's revenge was close until a familiar laughter echoed inside the cargo hold. Offering words of ridicule for the brothers, Ventress made her presence known. The reason for her intervention was unclear, but Savage soon found himself, alongside his brother, fighting his former Nightsister master and Obi-Wan. The four-way battle was fierce, but at that moment, the brothers' combined strength was too much for their enemies. Ventress and Obi-Wan realized they had to escape. They managed to lead the fight into the cockpit, where they sealed themselves in. The Jedi Master triggered the emergency release and chucked out the front section of the ship, leaving Savage and Maul trapped in the remaining hull. the brothers managed to board a passing civilian freighter and execute its crew. They took the ship for themselves and used it to continue spreading chaos. However, something shifted. Savage watched as Maul's focus turned towards gathering wealth and power. They struck the Cyblock transfer station, an enormous banking hub. After eliminating the guards and breaching the vault, Savage stood over heaps of credits. He was pleased that they found great loot, but questioned the purpose of taking such riches. It was here that Maul laid out his thoughts honestly. He told his brother that in order to have a successful partnership, they needed to follow one vision, his. Savage disagreed, telling Maul that there was no need for one of them to dominate the other. But Maul called upon the rule of two, a doctrine that the Sith lived by. There can only be one master and one apprentice, and clearly their roles had already been established. To assert himself, Savage engaged Maul into a fight. However, it didn't last long. Maul soon pinned him against the floor to prove he was more powerful. Savage admitted that his brother had gotten very strong. Maul promised his brother he would continue to train Savage in the ways of the Sith, but only if he accepted his place as his apprentice. Acknowledging his brother's superiority, and that slipping into the role of Maul's apprentice wasn't an insult or injury to his pride, Savage consented to their dynamic. The brothers began looking for an army in their quest to fulfill Maul's vision. His brother wanted to challenge the Jedi. The Jedi, however, was an entire organization. They couldn't hope to stand against the whole Jedi Order without an empire of their own. They traveled to the desert planet Florem to take control of Hondo Ohnaka's pirate gang. Maul used the credits they had stolen to bribe a large group of Hondo's men. He promised the pirates more wealth than they had ever seen if they betrayed Hondo. Maul contacted Hondo to threaten him into submission, but Hondo laughed at his face. To show his dominance, the former Sith Lord proceeded to attack Florem with the pirates that deflected to his side. But when they landed on the planet to launch their attack, Savage noticed a Jedi shuttle landing in the distance. Obi-Wan and Adi Gallia stepped out, apparently to provide combat support to Hondo. A large-scale fight broke out across the pirate base, with the brothers engaging the Jedi Masters. Savage used his physical advantages to gore Gallia with the horns on his head before delivering a fatal stab. Then, he joined Maul to fight against Obi-Wan. During the struggle, the Jedi Master found an opening and severed Savage's left arm with a clean strike of his lightsaber. The brothers had no choice but to retreat. On their way back to the ship, the pirates they had recruited switched back, further complicating the situation. The entire pirate gang opened fire on them. A heavy blaster bolt struck Maul's mechanical leg, damaging the gears and making it hard for him to walk. Helping each other, the brothers managed to escape, but the pirates blasted their ship out of the sky. Savage and Maul were cast into space in an emergency pod. Due to his injuries, Savage felt his life begin to ebb away. The brothers were close to death when their emergency pod was recovered by the Death Watch, a Mandalorian splinter group led by Pre Vizsla. Savage woke up to find Maul by his bedside. The Death Watch had fitted him with a mechanical prosthetic arm and gave Maul human-like cybernetic legs. His brother immediately informed him of a possible alliance with their rescuers, this time with a group that practiced honor among them and had more to offer than lowly pirates. The Death Watch wanted to preserve and continue the Mandalorians' traditional warrior culture. The group sought to overthrow the current Prime Minister, Duchess Satine Kryze, who ran the planet under a pacifist regime. Maul told Savage that they were going to use the conflict to build his own criminal underworld and use Mandalore as its base. Forging an alliance didn't take much convincing. It helped that Obi-Wan was a common enemy. Pre Vizsla wanted to retake Mandalore, but the Death Watch forces were too small to stage a planet-wide operation. Maul convinced him that he and his brother could gather an army. The Death Watch partnered up with the brothers before Savage could step out of the medical tent. Savage watched as Maul established the Shadow Collective. During this campaign, Maul acted as negotiator while Savage stood beside him as his enforcer. They started with the crime syndicate Black Sun. Unfortunately, their audience with its leadership council didn't go as planned. The brothers were hoping to intimidate the council into joining their alliance. Instead, the Black Sun leaders dismissed them as irrelevant upstarts. At Maul's silent direction, Savage hurled his lightsaber at the table, a wide arc that decapitated all the council members in seconds. When news of this incident made the rounds in criminal circles, the Pike Syndicate came to the Death Watch camp to join their alliance voluntarily. The Hutt cartel proved more resistant and required additional force. Savage executed a Hutt representative before Maul's collective forces launched an attack at Jabba's palace. The Hutts joined, realizing that cooperation was preferable to extinction. Finally, the Shadow Collective was ready to take over Mandalore. Maul's plan was simple but elegant. They would stage an invasion to expose the Duchess's rule as weak and ineffective against aggressive threats. The Death Watch would then swoop in to stop the invaders, allowing them to appear as protectors and saviors and cementing the rightfulness of their old warrior traditions. Pre Vizsla admired Maul's strategy, but Savage sensed that the Death Watch leader was gonna betray them. Maul reassured his brother that they would overcome it when it happened. The Shadow Collective staged coordinated attacks on the capital city of Sundari, creating chaos that menaced the Mandalorian population. Desperate for security, the people welcomed the Death Watch's intervention. The Duchess was removed from power, and Pre Vizsla was appointed Prime Minister as planned. Just as Savage predicted, Vizsla betrayed the brothers once he assumed leadership. He presented them as the masterminds of the assault on Mandalore and threw them in prison. The brothers escaped with ease and freed Almec, the Prime Minister, before the Duchess, who was deposed and jailed for corrupt practices. Savage joined his brother as Maul walked into the royal throne room and publicly challenged Pre Vizsla for Mandalore's leadership. The rule of single combat was an ancient Mandalorian tradition that the Death Watch lived by, giving Vizsla no choice but to accept. Savage watched as his brother won the duel by beheading Vizsla with his own darksaber. After escaping their cell, the brothers freed Almec, the Prime Minister who had been deposed and imprisoned before the Duchess took power. Almec stood before the Mandalorian people with a public announcement. The Duchess had assassinated Vizsla. He then reclaimed his position as the Prime Minister. For the first time in years, Savage tasted a real sense of victory. Then, the doors to the throne room opened. The shift in the air was the first thing Savage noticed. Even before the doors to the throne room slid open, the atmosphere in the Great Hall of Sundari became heavy. He saw his brother, who usually radiated supreme confidence and malice, suddenly freeze. Maul's eyes widened. For the first time since Maul's restoration on Dathomir, Savage felt a wave of genuine fear coming from his brother. His own connection to the Force made his veins feel like ice. When the hooded figure finally entered the room, Savage felt a pressure in his mind that was far greater than he had experienced from the Jedi. The most jarring moment was seeing Maul kneel on one knee and hearing the word leave his brother's lips. Master. Savage had spent his entire life serving someone else. First for the Nightsisters, then for Dooku, and for Maul. He had only just begun to accept his brother as the ultimate authority in the galaxy. Yet, here he was, the man who claimed there were only ever two, bowing in submission to another. Maul told the hooded figure that he did all of this hoping to return to his side. Then Savage understood. They were in the presence of Darth Sidious, who Maul once called the most powerful being in the galaxy. Savage didn't know what to do. He stayed behind his brother, scared and uncertain of how to react. Then the Sith Lord began to speak. At first, Sidious stated he was impressed by Maul's survival, confirming that the Dark Master had not known his former apprentice was alive. Or perhaps he had known only recently. However, he expressed disappointment that his former apprentice was attempting to deceive him. He then declared Maul had become a rival. Sidious raised his hands and gripped both brothers with the Force. Savage felt himself rise off the ground, helpless, as the Dark Master flung them across the vast throne room. They slammed into the far wall with bone-crushing force. Sidious laughed before he released them. The brothers rose to their feet, and a fight began. Savage felt a sense of frantic desperation. He was a creature of raw, overwhelming power. Under Maul's guidance, he had gotten stronger, had become a better fighter, but as they moved from the throne room to the royal plaza, his heavy strikes couldn't land a single hit. Sidious was not a man, but a blur of crimson and shadow. Wielding two lightsabers, he moved like water or smoke. Savage's mind was a storm of confusion and mounting panic. He was used to being a battering ram that broke his enemies, but Sidious toyed with him and his brother, cackling as he parried their combined assault. The Dark Master treated the fight as entertainment rather than an actual threat. The Sith Lord eventually separated the brothers, isolating Savage by pulling him towards the end of the plaza. With casual precision, Sidious broke through the Nightbrother's defenses, and Savage felt his red blades rip through his chest. The pain was unlike the loss of his arm and forearm. It felt like it tore through his soul. Sidious tossed Savage's broken body to the courtyard below, and Maul jumped after him. Savage reached out to his brother. Maul took his hand and watched as the Nightsisters' magic left Savage's body in a green mist. Savage appeared to shrink back to his natural size. The fog of Savage's transformation lifted from his mind. Looking up at Maul, he no longer felt like a Sith or a crime lord. He felt the crushing weight of his own failure and his sad existence. In his final moments, he told Maul that he was an unworthy apprentice and had never been like his brother. Savage's story ended on the coal stones of Mandalore, a pawn in a game far larger than he ever realized or cared to understand. Because Savage was an unsuspecting victim of the mechanisms created by the masters he served, his life story was a tragedy of what happens when the dark side claims a soul.